Shabbat
Shalom.
Oh, I don't have a prayer book.
I'll get you one.
Thank you, Rabbi. Oh, Clayman's perfect. Na 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 line Shabbat shalom, friends. So welcome, friends, in the Zoomiverse and in the YouTubeverse also. We're glad we can all be together.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Page 24, right, Rabbi?
Exactly. We're going to welcome those angels in. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom
Alechem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon.
Mimelech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Asharon, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barechuni L'Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, Hakadosh, Baruch Hu. Tzedchem L'Shalom, Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
I was reminded that one of my favorite books this week of Jewish philosophy is a really thin book called The Sabbath by Abraham Joshua Heschel. And in that book, Heschel famously calls Shabbat a cathedral in time. Now, what exactly does that mean? He's discussing the fact that throughout history, people have spent a tremendous amount of energy on physical buildings, on cathedrals, on castles, on statements of one's power. But the problem is, if you've ever read the famous poem Ozymandias, there are great testaments to people that turn to dust, that generations later are just ruins. You can take away a building. You can destroy a building. The Jews know that very well. They had one in Jerusalem that was razed in 586 BCE and again in 70 CE. But what you can't take away is time. You can build time and you can make time beautiful. And so, says Heschel, Jews don't build castles. Jews don't build cathedrals. Instead, their great testament to God, their testament to the universe, and their enduring legacy is time. It is resting every seventh day. It's observing the holidays. It's understanding that the prayer of a Jew is different on the morning and in the afternoon and in the night of any given day. Our guiding principle is not the physical, but the timeless spiritual. And that's what Shabbat is. It wouldn't matter whether we were praying here, in a cathedral, a castle, or out in nature. Instead, what matters is that no matter what we do, it will always be the seventh day. And in doing so, we envision a testament to God that can never be taken away and destroyed. And so we're prepared to usher in that testament, that cathedral in time, which is the Sabbath, as together we prepare to light our candles and to bless our wine. We're on page 2 and 3, and I want to call up Johanna Rosenfeld to light our candles now.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Again, like when I do this with the preschoolers in the morning, and then we uncover our eyes and we say, and now you can say Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
It's now.
So we're going to turn to page 20 as we join together in Lachadodi.
Dodi lirat kala yala 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela yala lecha dodi lirat kala yala yala b'nei Shabbat nekabela shamor zachor
Let's hear you.
Lecha dodi lirat kala yala ya b'nei Shabbat nekabela yadai lecha dodi lirat kala yala b'nei Shabbat nekabela likrat Shabbat lechuven elcha ki nekor habercha merosh mikedem nesucha isof maaseh b'machshavat tchila.
Let's hear you.
Lecha dodi lirat kala yala ya b'nei Shabbat nekabela yadai lecha dodi lirat kala yala ya b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 5.
Hitorari
rise together, verse number 9.
בואי, בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני, אמר, אמר, אמסי גאולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת קלה, ידדי, יללי, פני שבת נקבלה, ידעי לי לך דודי לקראת קלה, ידעי, יללי, יללי, פני שבת נקבל. I think we have one more round in us. לך דודי לקראת קלה, ידעי, יללי, יללי, פני שבת נקבלה, ידעי, ידעי לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
We're going to remain standing, page 28.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
We're seated together. We're on the bottom of page 31. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Well, where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim.
Amen.
Page 32. Ahavat Olam
Beit
Yisrael
Amecha
Amecha
Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chokim u'mishpatim Otanu limadta Otanu limadta Alekanu Adonai Eloheinu v'shachveinu v'kumenu Nasiach b'chukecha ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו. יומם ולילה נגה יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל אוהב עמו ישראל ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד
Together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמן.
Page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together.
מי כמוך בא אלים אדוני, join us. מי כמוך בא אלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהיל אותו ספלם, נורא תהיל אותו ספלם. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה לי אנו ואמרו, זה לי אנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. One more time, man, ya, 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 la, la, ya, 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 la, 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 ya, la, ya, ya, la, la, ya, la, la, ya, la, la. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאולו חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Page 44 on the bottom, Yismech. Oh, I'm sorry. Page 42 on the top, Hashkivenu.
Na na na
Hashkivenu Adonai
Eloheinu l'shalom, 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 l'shalom. Me'ha'amideinu shomerenu l'chaim, l'chaim, l'shalom, 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 l'shalom. Na na na. Nay 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 na 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 na.
Yai nai nai, yai nai nai, yai nai nai. Yai nai nai, yai nai nai, yai nai
ברוך אתה אדוני הבורא סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Bottom of page 44.
Hold on, don't start yet. I can't hear you, Bob. There we go. Peace. I literally can't sing it in that key, obviously. 3, 4. Yismechu v'malechutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'koreh oneh Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha shomrei 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 Shabbat v'koreh oneh Shabbat. Mikadashei shevi Shabbat Akulam yisbeu Yitangu mituvecha Shabbat Yisrechu v'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat v'koreh oneh Shabbat Yisbeu v'malechutecha Shomrei 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 Shabbat v'koreh oneh Shabbat Ve'ashir רצית בו וקיישו שבת וחמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת.
Let's hear you. ישמחו
במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עולה שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עולה שבת. למעשה בראשית שבת, זכר למעשה בראשית שבת.
Let's hear you. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי שומרי
שומרי שבת וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג
In a moment, we're going to turn to page 46, and after this opening meditation, asking God to open up our lips, we'll move into silence through page 64. You can pray either the traditional words on the page or whatever words are in your heart as we rise together, if we are able, page 46.
Adonai, sefatai tiftach ופי יגיד תהילתך.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha.
I'm a mess. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו amen. We'll try that again. I'm sending peace our way. Se shalom bimroma, se shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru amen.
Shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu
ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imeru
We pause for a moment as we think of those who are ill and who are in need of healing, who are in need of a refuah shlema, complete healing of body, mind, soul, and spirit. I'm going to invite us to turn to page 253, and as my eyes go around the room, I'll invite you to name names of people that you're thinking about, and if you're joining us online, feel free to put them into the chat. And then I'll invite us to turn our attention both to the prayers in front of you and also to the screen as we see a list of scrolling names of those that our community is especially thinking about at this time.
Bless the ones before us.
Help us find the courage to
Make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. מקור הברכה לאבותינו.
Bless those in need of healing
with
refuah shlema,
the renewal of the body, the renewal of His Spirit, and let us say, Amen.
So Shabbat Shalom. So just a trigger warning before I speak tonight. What I'm going to speak about is a pretty serious, heavy topic. It deals with assault, and I just want to tell those, in case you are triggered by it, just to know, to expect that it's going to come up. One of the funnier lines in this week's Torah portion appears after Moses comes down from Mount Sinai. Moses has heard that there was this ruckus going on at the foot of Mount Sinai, only to find out from God that the people have built a golden calf. Now, the way that it happens is tragic. Moses is only delayed. He's on top of Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, and he's only delayed for a very short period of time. But the people grow impatient, and they approach Aaron, and they say to Aaron, "Build us a calf." Now, Aaron is nervous. He doesn't know what to do. According to Midrash, according to legend, Aaron actually doesn't want to do it, but the people threaten to kill him. And so he decides that he's going to go through with it. So he collects the people's earrings and rings, melts them down into liquid gold, puts them into a mold, and creates this golden calf. And the people parade around the golden calf. They sing, they dance in this orgiastic ecstasy. Now Moses, as I said, hears about this and comes down, having received the 10 Commandments, and breaks the 10 Commandments and begins to scold the people. And one of the first people he meets after he comes down is his brother Aaron. And he says to Aaron, basically, "Aaron, how could you have done this?" And Aaron says, and here's that kind of strange, funny line, it was really strange. The people kind of took off their gold and melted it down, and out popped this calf. It's odd. What Aaron could have done in that moment is he could have taken accountability. He could have admitted that what he did was wrong. Even, by the way, if he was forced to do it, he still could have felt bad. He could have had contrition for what he did. Instead, he passed the buck. He admitted that it happened, but he took no steps toward tshuva, toward repentance, toward clearing his soul and his name. He did nothing to admit accountability in his role in what is one of the great shames of Jewish history. And I've been thinking a lot about the nature of accountability and what accountability really looks like, because if you've been following the Jewish news, the third of 3 reports just dropped in the Reformed Jewish community. There's an accounting going on in the Reformed community that you may or may not know about. There were certain kind of key allegations of sexual abuse that came up about a series of rabbis, 1 or 2 specifically, in the past year or so, who served at major pulpits in New York City. One of them, by the way, was the president of Hebrew Union College, which is the organization that ordains rabbis and cantors in the Reform movement. It's where Rabbi Stephen Kushner went. It's where I went. And they realized that something had gone wrong. Now, the Jewish community was a little bit late to the Me Too movement, but it hit very strongly in these past few weeks, really past few months. So that Hebrew Union College decided that they were going to investigate. They were going to find out how deep this actually ran. And while they started investigating, the Central Conference for American Rabbis, the CCAR, which is the organization that oversees Reform rabbis, it's where I belong, it's where Rabbi Kushner belonged, they began their own investigation to find out different questions. And then the Union for Reform Judaism went and they looked for their own issues. Because the truth is, sexual assault, sexual abuse, sexual harassment are pervasive. They are part of all society, and Judaism and Reform Judaism is not immune from them. The Hebrew Union College report went and looked at the question, what is the climate like on our campuses? Do professors privilege male students over female students? Do professors use their standing to harass female students? And it went back far in the past. And look, times were different in the past. Truly they were. Professors, for example, are married currently to former students of theirs from the 70s and from the early 80s, where that seemed to be more okay than it is now. But what they realize is that there are endemic pieces of sexual harassment and sexual privilege that go on the campuses of the Reform movement, where the highest leaders are ordained, women who, for example, don't feel comfortable speaking up, men who are fast-tracked in careers when they get PhDs, but women are not. I learned from that report that my female colleagues have a different title on their certificate of ordination than I do. Yes. It's endemic to the seminary. It's also, by the way, endemic to the rabbinate. The CCAR looked actually specifically at the notion of whether or not they were doing right when an assault charge or a harassment charge was brought forward. Do they suspend that rabbi quick enough? Do they censure that rabbi? What does the tshuva process look like whereby if a rabbi makes a mistake, that rabbi can come back and work again? And is that smart in a way that they know the rabbi isn't going to cause the same kind of pain that they did the first time around? Is the movement talking to the synagogues so that if a movement censures a rabbi, if a movement kicks the rabbi out of the CCAR for doing something they shouldn't have, can they still keep their jobs? And when a synagogue decides to keep them, but the CCAR decides to let them go, should the CCAR publicize their name so that other people who might be joining that synagogue know that potentially they're joining a rabbi who is a predator? And then today, really yesterday, the URJ's report came out. Now, we pay dues to the Union for Reform Judaism. We are one of 900 Reform congregations in the country. And what they concentrated on was their specific programming. And the question is whether or not they are creating a climate of sexual harassment and sexual assault within. And the truth is, if you've ever been to Jewish summer camp and you've ever been to youth group in previous generations, you know that it was a dangerous place sometimes to be. They talked about, for example, point systems, where depending if you were on Nifty board or not, you were worth, quote, more points, so that you might have people try to hook up with you in order to get those points. They talked about counselors at camp who dated campers. They talked about camp directors who turned a blind eye or who harassed their own staff. And although most, by the way, in the HUC report and in the URJ report, most of the examples were not from the past decade or two, it gave us a sense of what accounting really looks like and brought to the forefront the fact that we're not able to look out, let's say, at the Catholic Church and say that we are immune to this, because we are not. It is part of everything, and it is part of us as well. And one of the things that I admire about these three reports is that the Reform movement and the CCAR and HUC did not make the same mistake as Aaron did. We didn't look at the golden calf around us and say, it just happened. We didn't point at the predators and say they are an anomaly. Instead, what each of these three reports triggered is a true sense of accountability. There is the widest chasm possible between there was bad and I did bad. Aaron had no problem admitting there was bad. He could not admit I did bad. And although the majority of people who were writing the report and reading the report were not the ones who were named in those reports, and they were not the ones who might not have been named but were still doing the behavior, they were responsible nonetheless. There's an idea in Judaism which is called arevut, which means a communal responsibility. It comes from the same root, and I've talked about this before, of a guarantor. Someone, by the way, who pays for you in your apartment if you can't pay yourself. Well, ethically, we are all guarantors for one another, which means that if someone falls down on the job, it becomes our job to pick them up. It also means, by the way, that we can say that, as Abraham Joshua Heschel said, when great moral turpitude happens, some are guilty, but all are responsible. I own pieces of that report because I went to camp with people who did those things. Whether or not I even knew they were going on, I was part of a culture by which it happened. I went to youth group in a culture by which those things happened. We all went to synagogue and were part of a reform movement whereby those things happened. And even if you never knew about it, even if it didn't touch you, by nature of being Reform Jews, by nature of being in community, it is not bad things happened. And you may not say, I did it, but you must say, we did it. And by saying we did it, it means that you can start to become accountable and you can start to figure out how to mend those wounds and stand in the fray to make sure that these things never happen again. Aaron couldn't, but we can. Evil doesn't magically appear. It's because we're part of a society that closes its eyes to it to allow it to appear. Open your eyes. The more vigilant we are, the less likely it will be to happen. We are learning. The reform movement is learning. But the more that we embrace that learning, the more that we embrace that tshuva, the more that we talk about it, the more out in the open it is, the more articles that we share about it, the less shame we feel by letting the secrecy out that the world will judge us that this stuff was going on in our backyard too, the less likely it is to ever be again. Our generation has its own golden calf, and it's called sexual abuse and sexual assault. It is our job to make sure that it disappears. And the only way we can do that is by adding the I and the we back into the sentence. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to turn to page 282 as we rise for Alinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה. שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
287.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
אחד. We take a moment and we pause as we remember those that we've loved and who we've lost. We turn to page 294 as I read the following names. This Shabbat we remember Abraham Alexander, Harold Alexander, Marcia Birnbaum, Erwin Birnbaum, Eloise Block, Arthur Block, Eshka Brown, Gussie Holland, Camisa, Richard Festa, Bertha Fitzgerald, Berhold Fleissig, Erwin Geller, Claire Genser, Francis Goldstein, David Gould, Lillian Gushin, Harry Halpern, Paul Hirsch, Herbert Jacobs, Esther Katimsky, Richard Lasday, Isidore Latz, Jacob Marcus, Steve Margolius, Bessie Ruth Mabey, Edward Nobler, Ruth Passvol, Ira Resnick, Helen Rosen, Rosalind Rosenblatt, Morris Rubin, Claire Russ, Harry Sandler, Henry Schleien, Esther Schmidt, Jack Schnoll, Raymond Shapiro, Ivan Siskin, Philip Spindel, Adolf Spitz, Jerry Stein, Harry Vigdor, Sheldon Wiener, Natalie Westreich, and Bertha Wien. And those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning, Salvador Marchese, uncle of Laura Marchese, Sheila Richter, mother of Amy Clayman, and Ellen Berman, mother of Doug Berman. In addition, I'll ask you to add any names of people for whom you're thinking that may not have been on this list, or those that you are within 1 year period of mourning for. Feel free to add it online as well. We join together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, b'yomad divrach kirutei v'yamlech malchutei, b'chayachon u'v'yomachon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, b'gala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amin. Yehei shmei Rabbah b'varach le'olam u'lamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitnormam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal v'shemei d'kudashah b'rechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, tamiram b'yamav v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'erko Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'erko Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. As together we say, amen. Please be seated. So a few announcements, then we're going to do closing song, and we'll make Kiddush at the very end. Next week, we are really excited that we have a special program for Black History Month. We're going to be inviting a professor, Professor Haynes, to come and speak. One of the amazing things about the new world that we live in is that we can get prestigious speakers that we don't have to fly in across the country for artist in residence or scholar in residence, but can be with us for a night. And so he is going to be in his home in California, and we are going to be here, and we'll have a pretty straightforward service with no sermon, and then we'll turn things over to him. And he wrote a really interesting book on Jews of African descent, and he's going to talk about the intersection as a Black Jew between racism that he feels and anti-Semitism that he feels, and how the two of them intersect with one another. It's going to be a wonderful program. And it's next Shabbat. Yep. Tomorrow morning, we have at 9 a.m. Wake Up Shabbat, which is for our tots. And then we've got services at 10 a.m. It happens to be a holiday weekend and what normally would be a lay-led casual minyan. And so come, we've got some great leaders. Morty is leading, Rick is leading, and some great Torah readers. And we are going to join together in our casual minyan as our main service at 10 a.m.
And you can also join us virtually by Zoom.
Yep. I want to tell you where I'm going to be this weekend because I'm pretty excited. So Amsterdam was canceled, as I think you would guess. That's why I'm here tonight, even though I wasn't supposed to be. But I created a really cool New York City play day that I'm going to test out here. And then if it's really great, it's going to be something that I'll play around with the adults in the community if you want to do what we are doing with teens. We're having a professional balsamic vinaigrette and olive oil tasting from a merchant, learning about that. We are getting an Orthodox rabbi to take us around Crown Heights to teach us about Hasidic culture there. We're seeing a play about 5 generations of French Jewry called A Prayer for the French Republic from the Holocaust until today that deal with kind of the changing face of anti-Semitism in France. We're doing a scavenger hunt at the Met and looking at Dutch art, which we would have seen had we been going to the Rijksmuseum, and Jewish art. So I'll test all this stuff out, and if any of it works, you'll be invited next time.
Very cool.
Cantor, anything you want to share?
I think that we're gearing up for Purim, obviously. We've got some weeks. However, at the 1st of March, our next all-women's event is going to be online virtual, and we're bringing my dear friend and hilarious colleague, Lisa Mayer, who now goes by the main Rebbitzin. And she is a Rebbitzin, as well as being a hilariously wonderful comic and musician. And she's going to be online with us and do a really fun night of storytelling and celebrating women and their stories. Please, please, please come and spend the evening with us. 8 p.m., March 1st.
Oh, you reminded me.
What?
So, yes, Purim spiel, Purim, do it. But on the 13th,
Yes.
we booked it today, actually.
Okay,
The Jerusalem Open House is going to be coming to our congregation. They're the organization that basically does all the LGBTQ outreach in Jerusalem. They put on the Pride Parade in Jerusalem. They deal with all the counseling in Jerusalem for those who are part of the LGBTQ community and feeling like they need support. They're the ones advocating for the community to the Haredim, to the very ultra-Orthodox who are there. And the director of that is going to be in the States, and we snagged them for the night of the 13th to come here in person to address us.
That's right, and we're going to make that night hybrid so that you can be with us either in person or by online. We hope that you'll do one or both either, but please come, learn, and also just sort of lift up this organization here in the States that not a lot of people know about, but that we can really partner with. Were you going to say that also about the circle?
Well, the circles are pretty full at this point, so I think we're good. So we're going to turn now, closing song, to page number 321.
Robert Melman, thank you for being
Yes.
here and making beautiful music with us. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra le'et nasa v'chefto kol. Ooh, you sound good. Azay melech shemo nikra Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol Yitzir nivra Adon olam asher malach v'terem kol yitzir nivra le'nasa v'cheso kol azay melech shemo nikra ve'acharei v'yacharei kikhlot hakol levado yimloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu over
Let's hear you. Adon olam asher malach
בטרם כל יציר נברא לנצח וחצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא והוא אחד ושני לעם שלו להחבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית
Let's hear you. Adon olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra ve'nasa v'chesa kol azay melech shemo nikra
והוא אלי וחי לי וצוחב לי בעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מן הכוסי ביום מקרה
Let's hear you. Adon olam asher malach
בטרם כל יציר נברא לנשא וחסר כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא בידו אף כדרוכי ותישן והעירה ביברוכי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא.
Let's hear you. Adon olam asher malach
בטרם כל יציר נברא לנשא וחסר כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא.
So we're going to join together in Kiddush. And by the way, I don't know why I said that. There's definitely room in our giving circles if you want to. So yeah, we'll make room, even though we've got the circles made for you. So we launched an initiative. It actually launches next week of some giving circles of people who are going to gather around, who are going to learn about Israeli nonprofits to decide where they want to give their money to, so that they can decide really what their values are, where they lie in Israel, whether it's on building connections between Jews and Muslims, whether it's about religious freedom, whether it's about the environment and the land of Israel. So yeah, we'll make room. So by all means, if you want to be part of it, let me know. We'll join together in Kiddush. We're on page number 5 and 6. Or actually, 4 and 5.
They'll find it.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim Kivanu v'charta v'otanu kidashta mikol alamim v'shabbat kodshecha v'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch ata Adonai mekadesh hashabbat.
Amen. L'chaim.
So make a point, meet somebody new, introduce yourself to someone, wish them a Shabbat Shalom, and to those